welcome to the show. I'm Shanique Miller. It's good to have you all tuned in. National Security Minister Wayne Munroe receiving pushback tonight over comments made regarding the plea deal and sentencing of a 40-year-old man earlier this week, impregnating a 14-year-old girl. Well, Minister Munroe is live with us via Zoom, and we are grateful that he is here to clarify those comments and answer some questions that we have for him. Good evening to you, Minister Munroe, and welcome to Beyond the Headlines. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Good evening, Shanique.
Mr. Munroe, many Bahamians feel that you're speaking too much in favor of perpetrators of crime. For example, the statement you made suggesting in the case of the 40-year-old man that you would not have advised him, were he your client, to enter a plea or a plea deal. Is it wise in your position as Minister of National Security to give such an opinion?
Why isn't it? As a person involved with the criminal justice system, if we decide that we're going to ignore what the other side is going to do, then we're going to be blindsided every time. So what I bring to the table is this. I know what the other side's lawyers will do, so we can move to neutralize it. The reality is this. In every criminal justice system that seeks to work effectively, if you don't have 90% of the cases decided by plea deals, you will never get through your calendar. And so what I said today, and I stand by it, is if I represented this gentleman, I would have never advised him to plead guilty. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he was represented or not, but the fact that he chose to plead guilty means that in our system, we actually got a conviction and a 4-year sentence where if he had competent lawyers, we would not have had it. Because that's the reality of it. This thing that people have that you have to assume that people will act against their interests, you can't do that. You have to assume that people will take every step that they can legally take. And then on this side of the coin, you have to plan to address that. Or you could just decide to go merrily through the woods and say, well, I don't think he's going to do what's in his interest, and go along with it. Or you could say, I believe that if we offer him 10 years, he'll plead guilty to that when he definitely won't. Mm-hmm. And we could be like in Wonderland, or we can be realistic to get plea deals, get matters through the courts or not. What I'll tell you is this, Shanique, and I'll challenge you to ask the crisis center this. In a case where there's a child involved with an underage sex case, simply ask how many virtual complainants have shown up to trial and given evidence, because that's what the prosecution has to contend with. The child is born. The father is supporting the child. They summoned the mother to court. They summoned the grandmother to court at a time that the child is being supported. And the prosecution now has to persuade them to give evidence in order to jail the father and stop support. You will find that in 90% of the cases, mm-hmm. that person does not give evidence at all. So if you are in the seat of power and you know that's the case, what are you going to do?
Well, what are you going to do is correct.
And we have a bunch of sexual offenses cases. 10 years from now, are we going to try any of those? In the U.S., they basically resolve their matters by plea deals. So in the Bahamian public, if we realistically believe that people are going to plead guilty, they get very stiff sentences, we're deluding ourselves. So we have to approach things to say, what will this person get if they plead guilty mm-hmm. at an ordinary hearing? And then we have to do a next step. We have to say, what evidence do we have? So if we have you on camera, if we have DNA evidence, if we have your fingerprints, we would say we have a sure case of conviction. So we don't have to discount what the judge will give you. If we have a case where the young person has a baby and will not want to send the father to jail, then as a prosecutor, you got to figure out that's going to be a difficult witness, eh?
Yes.
And if it's going to be a difficult witness who may not remember things or may be obstinate and the man ends up acquitted, surely it's better to get him 4 years in jail than scot-free, eh?
Yeah, fair point. A fair point there. As you, I'm sure. Yes.
Or we may want to say, we don't want to offer you 4 years. We want to go to trial. And the young lady doesn't show up, be obstinate, and the fellow walk away scot-free. And we have a fellow who had sex with a 14-year-old girl get away without any punishment. These are the decisions that we have to make.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot clearer. Now let's move on to this point.